Well, thank you all for being here this morning. It's a real pleasure to see you've all taken a little bit of time out of your day to visit us here at Hot Black Coffee. I either walk past here or I drive past here. The Ministry of Labor is just up from the Rex there a little bit on Simcoe. So I've watched this store emerge. I've watched it go from a different, somebody else owned it at some point.
Yeah,
somebody
it was
else
a
was
card
running.
shop before,
Yeah,
actually.
a card shop. I've watched it turn into this bright red storefront, and then I've watched it open up, and I read online about how successful it's been. And it kind of runs contrary to some of the information that I've been provided as the Minister of Labor when we've consulted on the Changing Workplaces review over the past 2.5 years. There were some critics that were telling us that you can't possibly pay people fairly and well and run a successful business. I think sitting here today, if you talk to some of the employees here, very happy to work here, paid well. We have agreement from Jimson and from Nosami about improvements to the minimum wage. They agree with the direction we're going. And from what I've seen today, from what I've read online, what you have here is a very profitable business that's opened up very recently, or fairly recently, is doing very, very well, and goes out of its way to treat their employees well. And it runs contrary to the information that we've been getting, obviously, from other people who would prefer that we hadn't raised the minimum wage. And it's something that I think really illustrates the fact that this is really what Ontarians want to see. They want to see businesses that are successful. They want to see people working in jobs. But they want to know that those people are being treated well, that they're being paid well, that there aren't people that are working 35 and 40 hours a week and still not being able to afford the basics. So the changes that have taken place over the last little while, I think, are going to inject money into the economy in a way that a lot of economists are predicting it will, and will be a real positive for the economy. But I'm just so happy here to be here with Jimson, Nosami as well, just to illustrate what it's like from an owner's perspective and what it's like from somebody that actually works at the store, and that the changes that we've made and the doom and gloom predictions that some have, and the opposition parties that voted against these increases, I think this proves them wrong. I think we're sitting in a place that is a success story already. They've opened the doors, paying people well. So I'm going to turn it over to Jimson. He's going to tell you a little bit about Hot Black Coffee, how it started, what it's been doing, the approach that he has to how he treats his employees. And perhaps we can turn it over to Nosami after that. Maybe you can talk about what it's like to work here. So thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister. We've been open for 18 months here, and the concept right from the very beginning was to be service-oriented. We don't want to be just selling coffee. We want to be selling coffee and tea and really an experience with good people. And how we do that is by treating them well. Then they stay, and then we get better service. So we have actually never paid minimum wage. We've done whatever we could to pay people more than minimum wage and pay more than the benchmark. That allows us to have happier, more contented staff. We are not a multinational. We are two people running a place with family money that we put in ourselves. I didn't invest in a house, I invested in this place. And this is not a multinational. We do not have the margins or the buying power that the multinationals do. We're a small indie chain. We're on Queen Street West. We pay top dollar in terms of rent. And what we've done here is, by having good people with excellent product and good service, we're able to survive. We have a multinational across the street. We have another multinational chain across the street. We have another multinational on this side of the block, and we have another multinational next to us. Within 100 meters, we have 5 multinationals, and we're able to compete. Even though we pay more money for the staff, we pay more money for our product, we pay top dollar rent, and we can still survive. So how are we able to survive? And how are we able to survive with an increase in minimum wage? It's because we are able to now have a level playing field and pay people more money. I can still be competitive with all of these people, even though we're paying more money, because we're all forced to pay more money. And with that, it's level, it's competitive. The top people aren't getting more money, and the bottom people are moving upwards. And so we believe that this is a way to reduce inequality in society, and we are 100% for it. And we would also encourage a change in the tax regime to also encourage the entry-level people. That's a separate discussion. I managed to sneak that one in. But we're able to survive. We are profitable. We became profitable 10 months after we opened, which is rare for a coffee shop. And how do we do that? By treating people well, consistently, with good service and good product. It's possible. We are proof. Thank you, Minister.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And you work here.
Yes. So I think all employee here, all staff, we are very proud of ourselves working here, and we are trained very much, and we try to match all like customers' demand, like busy morning, busy afternoon. Like we try to serve quick pace, and but still like high quality, like excellent coffee and good service. So we provide. We provide good service and good product, and try to give a good service, right? Make all customer happy. So we should be evaluated fairly, and the owner Jameson fair. He's very like fairly treats us fairly. So I'm very happy about it, and it encourage us to keep working here with like high motivation. And I think I'm very happy to be here, be part of this team, and I'm happy.
Well, well, it's on the front page of Forbes magazine this month. It's very, very clear. It says, treat your employees well and you'll be more profitable and more productive. I mean, it couldn't be any clearer than that. I think now you've heard from Jim Sun, and you've heard from somebody that worked for Jim Sun. And the approach that he's taking is that he wants to make sure that his employees are treated well. The benefit he gets from that is he gets a company that is turning a profit within 10 months. I mean, I think the proof is in the pudding here. So why don't we stop and see if there's any questions that maybe people have to ask.
What do you make, Mr. Labor Minister, of the Chamber of Commerce saying that we're calling for the help of the provincial government in sort of making up for the shortfalls of small business to cover those extra costs of labor?
We've been working with the Chamber now for about 2.5 years on these issues. They certainly were a good partner as we were investigating some of the changes that would be necessary, or the impact of some of the changes, and how we might even mitigate some of those changes. We've moved to the stage now where a lot of those organizations are beginning to educate their members, to tell them how to comply, what compliance needs. We have made moves already. I think we signaled in the fall economic statement that there would be some moves made that would help small business in the long run when it comes to the small business tax rate, when it comes to things like hiring people. First time, as you were just talking about, Jimson, training, sort of getting people into entry-level jobs. So I expect, but there's been some differences of opinion. I understand that, and I accept that. The role of the Chamber is to represent their members. We're going to continue to work with the Chamber to make sure that all the benefits of this accrue to all businesses in Ontario as well. Economists have been very, very clear with me. I think the majority view, the prevailing view, I think the accepted view in the economic world is that this will be good for the economy. And I think just from what you've heard here from Jimson, the approach that he's taken, I think is further evidence of that.
So are you shutting the door then on taking steps that are above and beyond what's already been announced, or at least alluded to?
We'll continue to work with the Chamber. We've had a good partnership with them over the years. I expect that that's going to continue. As I said, their job is to represent their members. I haven't read the entirety of the letter. I've skimmed through the letter. I know it exists. My own Chamber of Commerce in Oakville is talking about the provincial election and what they'd like to see, those types of things. This is fairly typical for the Chamber of Commerce to make representation to government, to ask for certain things. And over the years, I think we've got a very strong track record in being able to work with small business. The economy, I think, is proof of that. We're leading the G7 in economic growth. We've got unemployment numbers like we haven't seen in almost 20 years. Something good is happening out there right now.
But do you think it makes sense to take provincial money, to take tax dollars to help fund a measure which I guess is about redistributing wealth, right, raising the minimum wage? I mean, does that make any sense?
No, what we're saying is that it was time to raise the minimum wage. I think what we're saying here is if you're going to index the minimum wage to anything, it should be pegged to a living wage. It should allow you, if you're putting in 35, 40 hours a week, you should be able to afford to pay rent, to buy clothes, to do all the ordinary things that families do. In the past, I think we mistakenly thought that the minimum wage was just a student wage, but people are trying to survive on close to minimum wage. So about almost a third of people in Ontario make less than $15 an hour, or they did before
But
the
the Chamber's
1st of
trying to
January.
say our members need help from taxpayers to redistribute the wealth. Like that to me, it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So,
Now, we'll continue to work with the Chamber and the members and with small business and with large business, with all business, to make sure that we've got very competitive tax rates. We already do, but I think we've been a government that's proven that it will listen and will continue to listen.
I'm just wondering, Susan, have you had to raise prices as a result of the wage increase? And if you have, what's been the response from your customers?
So the increase in wages, what we've done is we've put everybody up hourly. So everybody who is on hourly, we've shifted everybody up $2 an hour. So the least amount of pay that we had pre-January 1st for entry-level people was $12 an hour. We've moved everybody up, so people who were on 13 are now on 15, people who are on 12 are now on 14, the people who are on 15 are now on 17. So we thought it was a fair way to move it up, because otherwise we compress the bottom, and if we compress the bottom, then the people who were on 14, having worked here for 6 months, are no longer in a position to be above the normal, the entry level. So we were forced to shift everybody up. That put about 12.5% on my labor, my total wage bill, and my wage bill is about 35% of my sales. So if you take the 12.5% times the 35, we're looking at about a 4.5% change to my bottom line. So the bottom line, it's losing us about 4.5%. What we wanted to do is we're just going to sit tight for about a week or two, see how it settles out. We pay the staff by direct deposit weekly, so we're able to do a profit and loss weekly, and we're going to see the direct impact. So we have good idea. The first impact actually happened last night. You would have got your first pay rise last night, and as it went direct deposit on the Thursday night, we paid the previous week. So the first to the 7th was paid last night. So we're going to see the impact for week 1 right now. The exact number on our bottom line, we're going to look another week or two. We're also going to see what our competition is and what the competition is doing. We do believe that we will, in the long term, raise it up by about 4.5%, which is what it cost us. But at the same time, we can't just willy-nilly raise a price by 4.5% because we also have the market to deal with. So we're kind of just sitting tight for the moment, and we'll see what the market does. I do believe that all of us will end up putting the prices up about 4.5%. But if the minimum wage is going up 30%, then they win. It's spreading the cost across the rest of the gamut of society, as far as I'm concerned. And so although the inflation will go up, the inflation will not go up as much as the minimum wage has. And so the lower level, the entry level people, as far as I'm concerned, are going to be net winners.
Minister Flynn, what do you make of the fact that the PCs are not saying they will not roll back the $14 minimum wage? Does that tell you that it's so broadly popular that they just can't politically oppose it?
Well, certainly anybody I talk to on the street, I'm getting an awful lot of encouragement these days from just people that I bump into. They're seeing me a lot on TV, they're seeing me a lot on radio because of you guys and because of the issue. And it's one of those things that I think you can tell that the population out there, some people have a very strong point of view either way, but the general population understands that we fell behind. that you just can't live on $11.60 an hour. There's no sense even trying. So yeah, it is a popular issue. There's no doubt about it. The public in Ontario supports this move. My sense is that Patrick Brown's trying to have it both ways on this. He's trying to be supportive of the change because he knows that's what the people of Ontario want. But I think he's trying to satisfy a base that would much prefer that we left the minimum wage at $11.60 an hour, and that just isn't on. He's been very, very quiet lately. When we've had the brouhaha from Cobourg and Scarborough and other places like that, you haven't heard much from Patrick Brown, and I think he's just trying to play this both ways, and the public is clearly behind this move.
Speaking other than raising the minimum wage, will you consider instituting things like paid breaks through legislation, given what we've seen at some of Tim Hortons and their response to minimum wage?
Well, we've made some pretty substantial changes over the past 2.5 years, and to get to that point, we've done that with a lot of consultation. Some people in Ontario are entitled to paid breaks, and that's those people that can't leave the job site, people that have to stay at work. Currently, we don't want to go back into the Employment Standards Act again and start to take a look at these things. At some point in the future, is that something that you would look at? Perhaps. But I think that most employers, and I've been trying to say this all along, Sarah, is that most employers in the province of Ontario are decent organizations that treat their employees well. It's not unusual for people to work in Ontario that have paid breaks.
Well, Nozomi is an example.
Yep.
So here we are, and we also pay breaks, and we pay breaks because we feel that it's good, and it makes them happier and better. I'm not doing it as philanthropy. This is because we can have happier and better staff.
Yeah, and you have to think, Sarah, the Employment Standards Act is a floor. It's not a ceiling. You know, it's a minimum that says people have to have a break. People need that time off. Whether the employer wants to pay for that or not currently is a decision they make. And the vast majority, I think, of good employers would allow people to take paid breaks.
Minister? The issues that have arisen from Tim Hortons franchises, do you think that they could be avoided if it was easier for franchise employees to unionize?
Do I think it would be easier if it was what we've tried to do is we've tried to take a look at some of the people that are operating in the lower income levels, and we looked at the potential for them to organize. And we realized that because they often work in remote places, they may be working in one location this week and another location the other week, that card-based certification was something that suited them, was something that made sense, the same way it does in the construction industry. Is that the biggest issue with Tim Hortons right now, or with the minimum wage? I'd suggest it's not. I know that the OFL has jumped into the debate and is using it as a bit of a platform. But I really think what this argument is about, or what this debate is about decent employers treating their employees decently on a voluntary basis. You know, we've got a guy like Jimson here, understands it's good business. He just said he's not doing it out of any sense of philanthropy. He treats his employees well because it's more profitable to do that, it's more productive to do that, and it's a better place to work.
So does that mean you're not looking at any further changes
I-
to unionizing rules
I-
that was already made in 148?
Well, at the Ministry of Labour, I think we're always looking at ways to do things better, or perhaps changes that should be made. But I would have to think that after a 2.5-year pretty exhaustive study and process, that we've come to a place where we can allow these rules to begin to have their effect. Some of them haven't even been implemented yet. Some were implemented on date of passage, some were January 1st. April 1st, you'll see further implementation, and January 1st the following year. Existing contracts will be allowed to run until 2020. So there's going to be a process that comes out of what we've done already on Bill 148. Will we look at it? I get people phoning me, dropping into the office, giving me ideas on a pretty regular basis. But I would think that any fair evaluation would say that we've done a pretty exhaustive job. We've done some pretty extensive reform to both the Labor Relations Act and the Employment Standards Act, and it's time to let them have effect now.
Kevin, has the ministry had to undertake any new enforcement actions over the past week?
Any new enforcement actions? I understand they've had more requests to go and do more enforcement, obviously. We've had about a 30% increase in our calls. I don't get into the specifics. The minister doesn't get into the specifics of any alleged contraventions or the investigations themselves. But I understand our guys are pretty busy.
Minister?
Yep, Jamie?
You're saying you said a worker that has benefited from the minimum wage, but just down the street, a business, we've got a confirmed tip just from an employee down the street at the Condom Shack, doing business for 25 years. They're announcing that they're closing, according to this tip. And one of the owner going to his employees this week said one of the as she puts it, one of the major factors was minimum wage hike that's put them unprofitable shoes and their clothes. Yes, she's getting more money. What do you say to the workers down the street that will probably be unemployed?
Well, I don't know any of the details, and it would be unfair to me. I mean, this is a tip.
There's going to be job losses as a result. So what do you say to
Well,
those people that lose their jobs?
Businesses open and businesses close on a regular basis in the province of Ontario. What we've seen is we see overall a net increase in jobs. We see more businesses opening than are closing. I think probably now and for the next little while, you're going to have a lot of people will be pointing their fingers at this in a positive way or in a negative way. You'll have businesses saying, my business expanded because more people had more money in their pocket, so my sales increased. You're going to have other people saying, well, the minimum wage was what caused the demise of my business. I think you've got to evaluate it on a global basis. I think you've got to look at how the Ontario economy is performing. You've got some of the lowest unemployment numbers we've seen in 20 years, Jamie. So there are jobs out there. I mean, I think on a regular basis, before we had the minimum wage, there was businesses opening and closing. After we've had an increase to the minimum wage, I think you'll see that continue. But the net effect, any forecast I've seen, is that Ontario's economy is going to remain very, very strong, and we're going to have more jobs, not less.
Do you ever worry that your corporate competitors in the neighborhood are going to be opportunistic and use the raise in the minimum wage as an opportunity to crush you, like to wait you out and not raise their price? Because it's early days, right? And you're not shutting the door on raising prices.
No.
So are you concerned that they might wait you out and just wait until your coffee is the most expensive on the block and people would rather go?
I'm not worried at all. The restaurant business, the coffee business, is as competitive as it gets. We are always competitive, and everybody will always take advantage of any opportunity to try and beat their neighbor. Okay, it's just the nature of the environment. It's a saturated, mature market, and we are highly competitive all the time. And I can't ever let my guard down, and neither can they, because if they let their guard down, I will jump all over it. And if I let my guard down, they will jump all over me. That's the nature of competition, it's the nature of the market, and that's just the environment that we live in, and bring it on. Bring it on.
Kevin, earlier you said that the minimum wage should be set at a living wage. I'm just wondering, does that mean that once it gets to 15, you think it should be pegged to inflation so it keeps up with living?
That's exactly what we're doing, is that once it does get to 15, it will go back. The old process we had was very, very good. The old way of doing things was very, very good, where we went back and we looked at the CPI for the year before on April the 1st of a year, and then we told business as of October 1st it will be increasing by whatever the CPI was. So there was predictability. What was the problem with the minimum wage is that the baseline was just too low. We were doing it the right way, but we started from too low a place. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to politicize this issue again. We'll take another look at it somewhere in the 2020s. But what we want to make sure is that those people that have had the increase to the minimum wage today, and we'll get another one January 1st of next year, that they don't begin to fall behind after that, that they at least keep up with inflation.
Sorry, you said you don't want to politicize the minimum wage again. So that's, I guess, implying that what you've just done is a political thing, right?
Well, to be fair, yes, it is. I mean, I think before it used to be a political decision. You remember the Progressive Conservatives froze the minimum wage at $6.85 for somewhere between 8 or 10 years. And it took a political decision to change that. And, it was frozen 10 years, people just weren't getting by on that. So we realized that we didn't want to have this debate every year if we could avoid it, that we wanted something that wasn't as disruptive. So we bought in a system. After we talked to poverty advocates, we talked to organized labor business, they said, well, why don't you do something that's fair and predictable? So April the 1st of a given year, you look back at CPI and then you apply it, and it doesn't come into effect till October the 1st of this year. As I just said, that was a great process. It took the politics out of it. It just happened. It was something that workers could rely on, and it was something that businesses could predict. But the mistake that was made at the time, and I will freely admit it, the mistake that was made at the time is that the minimum wage didn't start at the right level. It didn't approach a living wage. It didn't take into account what it takes to live in Ontario these days. So yes, there's some politics in this.
Minister, do you think, Minister, you said that you think that the Conservatives are trying to have it both ways. It's on page 48 of their manifesto that the minimum wage, the $14 minimum wage, is their party policy. But then we see on Twitter MPPs, Tory MPPs, and Tory candidates slagging the minimum wage and siding with Tim Horton franchisees and others. Do you think that if they're elected on June 7th, they might actually roll it back, or is that
I'm convinced by past practice with the Conservatives on this issue that they would roll it back, or they would at least attempt to roll it back. So we're doing everything from a legislative perspective to ensure that that can't happen. I don't expect the Conservatives to be elected in the next election in any event. But what I think their followers need to know, because I'm getting tweets and all sorts of other correspondence from Conservative followers under the impression that their leader does not support this rise to the minimum wage. What he said very, very publicly is that he does. So you've got MPPs, you've got Tory MPPs saying they don't support the increase. You've got the party saying it does support the increase. And you've got a party leader that appears to have dropped out of sight on this issue right now.
Last night on TVO, former Liberal Finance Minister Greg Sober commented that he doesn't think that the government should be tackling poverty by passing on costs to small businesses. How do you what would you say to him?
Well, I haven't seen the interview. I've heard about it. I've heard some of Greg's comments. And Greg, I think, was a great finance minister for his time. Greg's been out of the job for some time as well. Perhaps Greg doesn't have the economic advice or the economic information that I've been able to avail myself of over the past few years. So I really would want to see the comments in depth. But it looked like Greg's enjoying his retirement. We're trying to deal with issues of the day. We're trying to deal with issues that that need attention today. Poverty, by definition, means that people don't have enough money. I mean, we talk about poverty, and it is a very complex issue. But in its most basic form, it means that people don't have enough money to buy the basics. And where they get that money is from working. And a lot of people in Ontario currently are working 35 or 40 hours a week and are still forced to live in poverty. So the changes that we made January the 1st of this year are going to go a long way towards changing that. So to suggest that perhaps paying people more isn't a good way of dealing with poverty makes absolutely no sense to me.
Can you just tell us how you as an owner feel about the fact that some of the Tim Hortons franchisees have odd bag benefits, etc.? How do you feel about what they've done?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to criticize my colleagues. I think rolling back advantages and just custom practice doesn't seem the right way to move forward. I would say that we stick to the standards that we have, we apply the minimum wage that we're obliged to, and we sit it out and we watch where we are. I think reducing the quality of employment to try and pay for a minimum wage is not the right way about it.
Now, do you feel as if you're going to have to raise prices of your items in order to cover the costs of the minimum wage?
Well, we had a question earlier on, so this increase of $2 an hour that we did, because Nozomi, for instance, was on 12 before and has moved up to 14, we increased everybody across the board $2. And we did that because otherwise the $14 people who were being paid are now on minimum wage. And so I still need to have a price differential. We raised everybody the $2.
The prices of your items, because I mean, to the discussion of people
absolutely.
So
That increased my wage bill by 12.5%. Our wages are about 30 to 35% of our sales. That means that there's a bottom line difference for me of about 4.5%. I'm sitting it out for the next little while to try and see how that's going to exactly affect me. We had our first payroll yesterday that included the increased minimum wage. I'm waiting to see the exact impact on my bottom line, and then I will probably increase by that 4 and a bit percent. But I'm waiting a little bit because it's also a market economy. If some of my colleagues raise it 10%, maybe I'll go a little higher than 4%. I don't think so. I think the point is to just for me to cover my costs. But I do believe that there will be a little round of inflation, okay? And we will be able to catch up with that easily. But if the inflation goes up, call it by 4%, 5%, the increase in minimum wage is 30. So it's increasing the level of wealth for the entry-level people. And I'm not worried that we put the prices up a little bit to be able to cover it.
Last question.
Minister, what do you say to cynics who say that you've raised the minimum wage so you can get more taxes? People will be making more money, they're making more taxes, people are going to be raising the prices for items that they're going to be selling, for instance, the coffees or what have you, and they say that this is just another way of making more in terms of taxes for this government.
Well, you know, I accept criticism from people. I accept criticism even from cynics, but it's got to make some sense. And you have to think the province of Ontario is an employer itself. We employ people, we fund agencies. A lot of the agencies that we fund pay people around this level. They're in the lower income level. So we're going to have some expenses as well as a provincial government. I suspect we will break even. It's all taxpayers' dollars that we're spending. I suspect that the government will break even. But the net result of that is that about a third of the people in the province of Ontario right now that make less than $15 an hour will be much closer towards a living wage. They'll be injecting money into the economy themselves. They'll be spending more money on a regular basis. They'll be able to put shoes on the kids' feet and do all those normal things that families do. So there's a net benefit to there's a net benefit to the economy. To the provincial government, I suspect it will be approximately a wash.
So you don't think you're going to be making money in terms of the taxes that you're going to be collecting?
No. I mean, any increase in taxes that we might receive as a result of this will go right back into the pockets of those people that are either working for the provincial government at that level or are working for agencies that are funded by the provincial government. I suspect we're going to see it come out as at about zero. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. First name Jimson, Jimson. Last name Bienenstock, Bienenstock. I am co-owner and president of Hot Black Coffee.
Nozomi, Nozomi, Morimoto, Morimoto.
How happy were you to receive a large paycheck yesterday? What did you think when you saw that?
I'm very happy.
That should have been the whole
No
interview.
complaint. I'm very happy.
Did it make a big difference to you?
I think so. Yeah.
Were you surprised when you saw the numbers on your check yesterday? I mean, was it substantial? Did it make a big difference to you? Or?
Yes. I don't say like big, like thousands of dollars, but this difference makes me happy and encourages me. Really, I'm happy about it.
So you feel like you work very hard for your money, obviously.
She does.
Will this make much of a difference for you in your life, having a higher wage?
Yes, and how the owner treat us, like increase like everybody's hourly wage, this $2 up. This like how can I say, like I feel like okay, I'm gonna provide more better service and provide good work.
What does it mean for you and your family? Do you have children?
Yeah, I have children.
She has one on the way right now.
Yeah.
What does it mean for you and your family, do you think?
I feel like I always compare if I buy things like something. This is pricey. Then I count. This is for my 2 hours price. I count. So I feel like I wanna give better things. Like easy to makes me feel easy to buy little more things to my kid and buy like if there is like two things, apple like conventional or organic, maybe I want to choose organic with 50 cents more, like makes me feel easy, better living.
Do you have 2 jobs or 1 job?
I have 2 jobs. I teach yoga too.
Thank you.